The night settles slowly across the North American continent, as if the sky itself is taking a long, deep breath. In the quiet spaces where mountains cast their shadows over cold plains and forests, lights begin to dim, and the world grows softer around the edges. It is in this gentle descent into darkness that the story begins, far from noise, far from urgency, drifting into the realm where the mind loosens its grip on the day. The atmosphere becomes calm, steady, and wide, like a long corridor stretching into the unknown. And within this peaceful quiet, the vast watchfulness of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, known simply as NORAD, continues without pause. For decades, NORAD has kept silent vigilance over skies that most people never think about after sunset. Its presence is almost mythic, an invisible guardian following the rise and fall of every aircraft, every satellite, every signal crossing the atmosphere. Yet its origins are grounded in very real concerns, born during the tense days of the Cold War. As nuclear tensions escalated between global powers, the United States and Canada understood that defending the continent required cooperation on a scale never attempted before. The early years of NORAD were shaped by a constant sense of anticipation, as if the next radar sweep might bring news of something catastrophic. But alongside the expected signals, bombers, missiles, experimental aircraft, there came returns that did not match anything familiar. Inside its command centers, the glow of radar screens creates a strange kind of twilight. No matter the hour, there is only the constant hum of machinery and the soft radio chatter echoing through dimly lit rooms. Operators sit with focus sharpened by training and long shifts, watching as tiny points of light appear, move, vanish, or repeat patterns they know by heart. Their eyes adapt to the darkness. Their minds adopt a quiet alertness that feels almost meditative. These are individuals accustomed to precision, people trained to distinguish between a deliberate aircraft maneuver and the drifting trajectory of a weather balloon. Yet even they sometimes witness what standard procedures cannot fully explain. The psychology of these watchmen of the night is complex. They are not casual observers glancing at a passing light. They are professionals deeply familiar with the behaviors of jets, satellites, and atmospheric reflections. Their perception is both trained and controlled, refined through countless simulations and real-world alerts. Fatigue does play a role. Night shifts stretch on, and the monotony of silent observation can make any anomaly appear more vivid. Yet this very monotony also makes genuine anomalies stand out sharply, as if they were breaking the rhythm of the night itself. When an operator pauses, leaning slightly forward as a blip appears on the screen where none should be, it is not out of imagination, but because something genuinely unexpected has entered the domain they monitor. NORAD's documentation reflects this mixture of precision and uncertainty. Official reports categorize unknowns methodically. An object is either identified, suspected, or simply labeled unresolved. Not every unexplained event becomes a mystery. Most are attributed to sensor errors, atmospheric interference, or brief equipment fluctuations. Even so, there remain cases that resist explanation. Some are logged quietly and forgotten, overshadowed by larger concerns. Others linger, discussed in low voices in break rooms, or remembered years later when new technology still fails to explain what older systems once captured. Across the mountain ridges and deep into the underground chambers of Cheyenne Mountain, the atmosphere carries a sense of isolation from the outside world. The steel doors that separate the complex from the surface feel symbolic. Crossing them feels like stepping into a timeless space where day and night lose their meaning. In such an environment, anomalies take on a different quality. The physical world above may be filled with forest cities and quiet homes where people sleep under peaceful skies, unaware of what passes overhead. But inside the command center, every unknown track is a question waiting to be understood. The presence of these mysteries shapes the culture of those who work within NORAD. Discussions among seasoned operators reveal a quiet acknowledgement that not everything fits neatly into categories. A veteran might mention a strange track seen decades earlier, still remembered not because it was frightening, but because it broke the predictable rhythm of their routine. Others might recall moments when different sensors, radar, infrared, satellite, aligned to show something moving in ways that ordinary aircraft could not. These accounts are rarely dramatic. Instead, they come across as calm, matter-of-fact observations from people accustomed to secrecy and precision. As the night deepens, the idea of NORAD as merely a military institution fades. It becomes something more like a sentinel of the night sky, an entity that sees patterns beyond the range of human sight. And within that vastness lies the quiet suggestion that the sky is not always as empty as it appears. While most people lie asleep, wrapped in dreams, NORAD screens continue to sweep across thousands of miles of atmosphere, and on rare occasions they reveal movements that no one can fully explain. The introduction does not present answers, only an invitation. An invitation to drift into a story that blends technology with mystery, human perception with cosmic possibility. The deeper one relaxes into this narrative, the clearer it becomes that the night sky holds far more than stars. It holds the traces of moments when the unknown briefly crossed paths with the world we understand, leaving behind questions that echo softly through the corridors of the mountain and through the minds of those who keep watch in the quiet hours. Long before NORAD stood watch over the skies of North America, the land beneath those skies was already rich with stories of strange lights, wandering craft, and quiet mysteries moving through the night. It is easy to imagine that sightings of unusual aerial objects began in the modern era, influenced by new technology or Cold War tensions. But as one looks farther back, the picture becomes more complex and much older. Travelers, settlers, and indigenous communities across the continent recorded accounts of sky anomalies long before radar, satellites, or military detection systems existed. These early reports are fragments of a larger pattern, one that shaped how the continent would later interpret the more technologically documented encounters of the 20th century. In the late 1800s, reports of so-called mystery airships drifted across North America like quiet legends. Newspapers from the Midwest to California published detailed stories of cigar-shaped craft seen floating or gliding overhead. Some witnesses insisted the objects were metallic, while others claimed they moved silently against the wind. Historians often debate these accounts, some interpreting them as misidentified stars, planets, or early experimental balloons, and others suggesting that the level of consistency across witness descriptions hints at something more deliberate. Regardless of their origin, these stories created an early cultural framework. The idea that the skies above North America sometimes displayed things beyond ordinary explanation. By the mid-20th century, the world had changed dramatically. The rise of aviation, the horrors of World War II, and the growing reach of the United States military all contributed to a new era of skywatching. Pilots during World War II reported glowing spheres that came to be known as Foo Fighters, objects that seemed to pace aircraft at speeds beyond anything in the Allied or Axis arsenals. Though later explanations ranged from ball lightning to enemy technology, none were universally accepted. After the war, a series of European sightings, known as the ghost rockets, spread concern through military intelligence circles. These strange aerial craft, sometimes rocket-like, sometimes disc-shaped, were detected on early radar systems in Sweden and Finland. Analysts suspected secret Soviet missiles or captured German technology, but when the phenomena drifted across the Atlantic into North American reports, the theories became harder to maintain. As Cold War tensions grew, the skies became more crowded with experimental aircraft, secret flight tests, and emerging technologies. This increased activity made identification both easier and more difficult. On one hand, military observers gained a deeper understanding of aerial behavior, lifting bodies, jet engines, high-altitude reconnaissance flights. On the other hand, the constant development of new weapons and surveillance tools meant that witnesses could not always be sure whether an unusual object was enemy technology, a domestic prototype, or something else entirely. Psychological studies from the era note that people living under Cold War anxiety were more attuned to potential threats. A strange light or sudden movement in the sky could trigger concerns far beyond curiosity. Despite this tension, many encounters from the 1940s and early 1950s were documented by trained observers, commercial pilots, radar operators, airbase security personnel, whose accounts were often consistent. For example, sightings of disc-shaped or glowing objects moving in controlled, intelligent ways became common enough that military agencies launched formal inquiries. These inquiries were not fringe or speculative. They were carried out by defense officials tasked with determining whether foreign powers possessed unknown technologies. The seriousness of these investigations helped cement the idea that North American skies were not always predictable, a belief that would eventually influence the formation of NORAD's detection protocols. Culturally, the mid-20th century was also experiencing a transformation. The early space age was beginning. Fictional works imagining advanced civilizations and interstellar travel filled bookshelves and newspapers. Films introduced extraterrestrial visitors and futuristic spacecraft to mainstream audiences. This cultural shift influenced how people interpreted unusual sky events. A bright object streaking overhead could be seen as a rocket, a meteor, or a sign of something far more mysterious. Yet historians often point out that culture alone cannot fully explain the consistency of certain patterns in eyewitness reports. Across rural towns, major cities, and remote wilderness regions, people described objects with similar shapes and behaviors long before communication between them was common. In this time before NORAD, the continent was already forming a layered understanding of aerial anomalies. Scientists proposed atmospheric explanations, temperature inversions, plasma formations, high-altitude ice reflections. Pilots argued that they were capable of distinguishing between atmospheric effects and structured craft. Meanwhile, intelligence analysts quietly documented sightings that matched nothing in known aircraft inventories. This mixture of scientific skepticism, eyewitness confidence, and classified study created an environment where mysteries were acknowledged, but rarely explained openly. By the time NORAD was created in 1958, the skies above North America were already filled with decades of documented strange encounters and unresolved incidents. The Binational Defense Command inherited not just a radar network, but also the weight of this history. Its purpose was to detect threats, yet many of the objects it would eventually track fit neither enemy profiles nor natural phenomena. Unknown objects had been drifting through the continent's skies long before NORAD's radars were installed, but now, for the first time, a vast unified system was prepared to see them. This historical foundation shapes the entire narrative. The mysteries NORAD would confront were not sudden or unexpected. They were part of a much larger continuum of North American skywatching, stretching from the earliest stories told around campfires to the technologically sophisticated detections of the modern age. As the story moves deeper into NORAD's operations, the listener carries with them this quiet understanding. The sky has always held mysteries, and NORAD simply became the first organization capable of watching them unfold with unwavering attention. Deep beneath the rugged slopes of Colorado, hidden inside a mountain carved with precision and purpose, lies one of the most quietly powerful places in North America. Entering the Cheyenne Mountain Complex feels like crossing into another world, one where time slows and the outside landscape fades into a distant memory. Massive steel blast doors, each weighing several tons, stand at the entrance like sentinels. Passing through them, the air becomes cool and slightly metallic, carrying a faint echo that follows each step deeper into the mountain. It is a place designed to withstand unimaginable forces, nuclear blasts, electromagnetic pulses, natural disasters. Yet inside it, the atmosphere is subdued, almost tranquil. This balance between immense strength and complete stillness sets the tone for the work carried out within its reinforced halls. The deeper one goes, the more the outside world disappears. The thick rock surrounding the corridors muffles all sounds, creating a constant, gentle hush. The lighting is dim and deliberate, casting soft reflections off smooth metal surfaces and instrument panels. For the personnel who work here, this environment becomes a second home, a space where day and night blend together, replaced by shifts, monitors, and the steady rhythm of system checks. It is here that NORAD's operations center lives, an intricate network of radar feeds, communication channels, and sensor arrays that watch over the entire continent. The heart of this complex is not loud or chaotic, but calm, steady, and meticulously organized. Older systems once relied on sweeping radar arms spinning in wide arcs, painting skies with pulses of energy that returned as small blips on glowing screens. Operators would lean forward, studying each trace with practiced eyes, recognizing familiar patterns. Commercial flights following predictable routes, military aircraft performing maneuvers, weather formations creating clusters of interference. Over time, these analog systems gave way to more advanced phased array radars capable of scanning vast regions almost instantly. Unlike the older equipment, these modern systems do not depend on mechanical movement, but use precise electronic steering to track multiple objects at once. The upgrade transformed the way NORAD could observe the sky, making detections more accurate, more detailed, and far more difficult to dismiss. Yet, even with improved technology, anomalies persist. Some radar returns appear briefly, darting across the screens at speeds too fast for known aircraft. Others hover without motion, steady and silent, only to vanish without a trace. Operators and analysts alike learn to approach these moments with both caution and professionalism. Not every unusual return signals something extraordinary. Temperature inversions can distort radar signals, atmospheric layers can bend beams, and equipment calibration can produce phantom echoes. But there are cases where multiple systems, sometimes from different locations, detect the same anomaly at the same moment. These are the anomalies that earn attention, that linger in reports, that travel up the chain of command. Within the mountain, the atmosphere shapes how these events are perceived. The quiet, controlled lighting encourages focus, making every subtle change on a screen feel important. Operators sit for long stretches, their senses attuned to the smallest inconsistencies. The psychological aspect of this work is unique. The mind shifts into a state of continuous observation, where calmness becomes a tool and routine becomes a shield against misinterpretation. Even so, human perception plays a role. Midnight shifts can stretch long, and the absence of sunlight creates an internal clock that becomes disconnected from the outside world. Yet it is precisely this environment that strengthens the credibility of unusual detections, because the personnel trained here learn to trust their instruments as much as their own eyes. The structure of NORAD's operations ensures that no anomaly is handled casually. When a radar return does not match any known aircraft profile, a series of procedures begins. Flight databases are checked, satellite paths reviewed, and communication with air traffic controllers established. If the object appears again in multiple sweeps, operators classify it as a track of interest, a neutral term that prevents premature assumptions. These procedures are not designed for excitement. They are designed for clarity. Even the language used is understated. Words like unknown, unidentified, or unresolved carry no dramatic weight here. They are simply categories. But within those categories lie the mysteries that inspire curiosity far beyond the mountain's walls. Sometimes anomalies receive immediate explanations: stratospheric balloons drifting off course, calibration tests, foreign aircraft testing radar boundaries. Other times, they remain unsolved. These rare cases are discussed quietly among staff members, gradually becoming part of the unwritten knowledge passed between generations of operators. A new shift may hear an older colleague mention a moment decades earlier when a radar return traveled at impossible speeds, or when multiple sensors, ground radar, space tracking, and infrared, captured the same inexplicable event. These stories do not form official documentation, but they shape the culture and awareness of those who watch the skies. As an outsider imagines this environment, it can feel imposing or mysterious. Yet for those who work inside the mountain, the space becomes comforting in its reliability. The hum of servers, the soft buzz of radio communication, and the steady glow of monitors form a consistent backdrop. There is no chaos here, only routine vigilance and the quiet understanding that the sky above is filled with more activity than most people will ever realize. Whether tracking known aircraft or witnessing something that defies easy classification, the operators maintain composure, knowing that tomorrow's shift will begin again with the same calm focus. In this secluded, fortified chamber beneath the earth, the boundary between the known and the unknown becomes clearer and more compelling. Every night, while the rest of the continent sleeps, NORAD's radars continue their silent sweep across thousands of miles of airspace. And even here, where technology reigns and precision is paramount, the mysteries of the sky still find their way onto screens and into the memories of those who keep watch in the endless quiet of the mountain. The night of the incident stretched across multiple Air Force bases in 1975, a season when winter's chill hung in the air and the long darkness seemed to amplify every sound and every light. At Loring Air Force Base in Maine, Woodsmith in Michigan, and Malmstrom in Montana, personnel settled into their routine watches, unaware that these nights would become etched into the archives of NORAD. The events began subtly, almost imperceptibly, as distant blips on radar screens, appearing at first like distant commercial aircraft or misreadings caused by weather interference. But soon, the anomalies revealed patterns that were unmistakable, deliberate, intelligent maneuvers that defied known technology and traditional explanations. Operators at each base followed strict procedures, meticulously logging every movement. At Loring, the radar picked up objects that accelerated at speeds exceeding the capabilities of any known aircraft at the time, changing direction abruptly and often disappearing from view entirely before reappearing elsewhere. Meanwhile, Woodsmith reported lights moving silently across the sky, visible to security personnel on the ground, yet undetectable by conventional tracking methods in some instances. At Malmstrom, radar data and visual accounts converged, creating a layered record that even skeptics could not easily dismiss. The synchronization of these sightings across vast distances suggested something more than coincidence, hinting at a phenomenon that moved with purpose and intelligence across the continent. Eyewitnesses described their experiences with calm precision rather than sensational drama, a detail that lends credibility to the reports. Security personnel, trained to observe without overreaction, noted glowing objects that maneuvered with precision, hovering, accelerating, and disappearing in ways that confounded their understanding of aerodynamics. Pilots in the area reported bright lights, performing maneuvers inconsistent with aircraft capabilities, including sudden lateral movements and rapid ascents that would have been physically impossible for conventional machines. The language used by witnesses emphasizes observation over interpretation. They recorded speeds, distances, and behaviors, leaving conclusions to analysts higher up the chain of command. Declassified NORAD logs show the level of attention given to these anomalies. Operators elevated alerts, communicated with adjacent bases, and coordinated radar sweeps in attempts to track the objects. Each appearance was noted meticulously, creating a detailed record that contrasted sharply with public knowledge, which remained minimal. Internal memos indicated a mixture of curiosity and caution. The anomalies could not be dismissed, yet confirming their origin posed a delicate challenge. Analysts debated whether the sightings were experimental aircraft, foreign technology, or perhaps a natural phenomenon previously unrecognized. But the consistency and behavior of the objects complicated these explanations, leaving a trail of unresolved questions. The emotional state of witnesses during these nights is notable. Military personnel are trained for high-stress scenarios, but these events were unusual because the perceived threat was ambiguous. There was no clear danger, yet the unknown movement of advanced objects near sensitive installations, especially areas housing nuclear assets, carried an undeniable gravity. Researchers studying eyewitness testimony emphasize that trained observers in controlled environments, like these radar rooms and airfields, are less prone to misinterpretation, making these accounts particularly compelling. Their reports reflect careful measurement rather than conjecture, contributing to the credibility of the events even decades later. Competing theories circulated immediately among analysts. Some suggested foreign surveillance aircraft, potentially Soviet prototypes, far ahead of publicly known capabilities. Others considered optical illusions, atmospheric anomalies, or technical errors in radar equipment. But the convergence of multiple reports, including visual sightings that corresponded to radar blips, challenged these explanations. Some anomalies were corroborated by multiple independent sources simultaneously, reducing the likelihood that they were mere equipment glitches or hallucinations caused by fatigue. In several instances, objects performed maneuvers that, based on known aeronautical physics at the time, would have been impossible for any human-made craft. The cultural context of these encounters is also worth noting. In the 1970s, the public imagination was primed by stories of UFOs and unexplained aerial phenomena, yet official acknowledgement of these incidents was extremely limited. NORAD and military authorities maintained silence in public forums, releasing only vague statements that masked the depth and frequency of the sightings. Researchers later noted that this mixture of documented activity and public secrecy contributed to a heightened sense of mystery. For the personnel involved, the contrast was stark. They were part of a disciplined, highly controlled investigation, witnessing extraordinary events that the public would only learn about decades later through declassified documents. By the end of these nights, the anomalies had left a record that defied easy categorization. The combination of radar data, eyewitness testimony, and procedural documentation created a complex mosaic that analysts could not fully explain. The objects appeared, maneuvered with precision, and disappeared without trace, challenging both technology and human understanding. The events of 1975 became a benchmark in the study of unexplained aerial phenomena, demonstrating that even the most trained and vigilant observers could encounter moments that exceeded known capabilities. These encounters also set the stage for later investigations. They showed that NORAD's sophisticated monitoring systems, while capable of tracking conventional aircraft and known threats, could still capture phenomena beyond established comprehension. The events highlighted a tension between rigorous military procedure and the persistent presence of the unknown, illustrating that even in a world of precise technology and disciplined observation, there remain mysteries that refuse to be neatly categorized. As the night drew to a close, the skies over North America returned to their calm normalcy, leaving the operators with data, memories, and questions, an invitation to explore the boundaries of understanding that would ripple through decades of NORAD records to come. By the early 1980s, NORAD's radar and space tracking capabilities had advanced significantly, giving operators a wider, more precise view of the skies above North America. Yet with these improvements came a new category of anomalies, ones that were faster, smaller, and more elusive than anything previously recorded. These objects, which operators came to refer to as fast walkers, appeared suddenly on multiple radar systems, sometimes traveling at velocities that seemed impossible for any known aircraft or satellite. Unlike conventional radar returns, which could usually be explained by known flight paths or atmospheric interference, these fast-moving blips suggested a presence in the sky that was deliberate, intelligent, and unconstrained by familiar laws of aerodynamics. The term fast walker emerged from the experiences of radar analysts who, while monitoring routine airspace, noticed objects accelerating and decelerating with precision, making sudden lateral movements, and traversing long distances in seconds. Operators were meticulous in recording their speed, trajectory, and timing, comparing notes across different bases and tracking systems. In some cases, fast walkers were detected moving in patterns that resembled coordinated behavior, as if they were observing or studying activity on the ground. Analysts quickly realized that these anomalies could not be dismissed as simple equipment errors or natural atmospheric phenomena. When multiple independent sensors, including ground-based radar, infrared tracking, and early satellite observation, registered the same events, the evidence of unusual aerial behavior became harder to ignore. The technical context is crucial for understanding these phenomena. Radar systems, even advanced ones, are subject to environmental factors such as ionospheric disturbances, weather reflections, and thermal inversions. NORAD operators were trained to distinguish such effects from real objects. Fast walkers, however, often behaved in ways inconsistent with any known error patterns. They appeared at high altitudes, moved at extreme speeds, and sometimes executed maneuvers that would be physically impossible for conventional craft, including instantaneous directional shifts or hovering with zero propulsion signatures. These observations generated internal discussions among engineers, physicists, and analysts, all attempting to reconcile the data with known aerospace capabilities. Eyewitness accounts from personnel monitoring fast-walker events further emphasized the credibility of the reports. Military observers, accustomed to long hours of precise monitoring, described the objects with technical specificity rather than sensationalism. They noted not only speed and trajectory, but also anomalous characteristics, such as apparent shapes, brightness, and consistent behavior across multiple nights. Pilots occasionally reported seeing objects visually, corroborating radar data. Researchers studying these testimonies highlight that trained observers, particularly those experienced with radar interpretation and aerospace operations, are less prone to misjudgment or optical illusion, lending weight to the authenticity of the sightings. Several competing explanations arose to account for fast-walker phenomena. Some suggested they were experimental aircraft or highly classified aerospace projects, possibly involving advanced propulsion technologies beyond the public domain. Others proposed natural explanations, such as meteor trails, bolides, or atmospheric plasma, but these failed to match the precision and behavior recorded. Certain analysts speculated that the anomalies could be misidentified satellites, yet satellite orbits are predictable, and fast walkers often appeared at speeds and altitudes incompatible with known orbital mechanics. This uncertainty contributed to an enduring tension. The data suggested genuine unknowns, yet definitive identification remained elusive. The psychological aspect of observing such high-speed anomalies is also noteworthy. Operators working night shifts, immersed in repetitive monitoring, develop heightened perceptual acuity, but also a deep awareness of pattern deviations. Fast walkers broke these patterns, standing out sharply against the background of predictable air traffic. For personnel trained to categorize every radar return, encountering something that defied categorization was both intellectually compelling and subtly unsettling. This combination of rigorous observation and unexpected anomaly fostered a unique environment in which mystery and professional curiosity coexisted. Culturally, the early 1980s were a period of fascination with space, technology, and unexplored frontiers. Films and literature portrayed advanced spacecraft, extraterrestrial visitors, and experimental aerial phenomena, priming the imagination of the public and the military alike. NORAD, however, remained careful in its documentation and communication, maintaining classified protocols while internally acknowledging that some fast walker cases were genuinely inexplicable. The contrast between public awareness and internal knowledge created a layered narrative. Official denial in the media coexisted with rigorous internal tracking and data collection. The fast walker phenomenon also highlighted the interplay between different monitoring systems. Radar alone could detect movement and speed, but combining radar data with infrared sensors, optical cameras, and early satellite feeds provided a more complete picture. Some objects were observed performing sudden changes in velocity across multiple sensors simultaneously, reinforcing the idea that these were real, physical entities rather than errors or illusions. The convergence of multiple data streams challenged analysts to consider unconventional possibilities while remaining grounded in methodical observation. Ultimately, the fast walker encounters of the 1980s set a precedent for modern UAP study. They demonstrated that even in an era of sophisticated technology and extensive aerospace knowledge, anomalies could still defy classification. NORAD personnel documented them with care, building a record that would later inform researchers and investigators. These events emphasize that the night sky, even under the watch of the most advanced sensors, could still host phenomena that remain enigmatic, inviting further inquiry and deepening the sense of mystery that permeates the history of unexplained aerial encounters. The fast walkers, moving silently and impossibly across the heavens, left a subtle but lasting imprint on the collective understanding of North America's monitored skies. Far to the north, where the Yukon stretches across vast expanses of wilderness and winter nights linger long, a remarkable UAP encounter unfolded in the mid-1990s, drawing attention to Canada's significant role in North American aerial monitoring. In this remote region, far from the bright lights of cities and the noise of human activity, multiple witnesses described a massive craft moving silently across the sky. Its presence was not fleeting. Observers noted deliberate movements, a slow, almost deliberate pace, and an otherworldly luminosity that seemed to glow without a source. While radar detection in these areas was more limited than at southern NORAD installations, the Canadian Air Force maintained protocols to communicate with NORAD when unknown objects entered controlled airspace, ensuring that these sightings were documented and tracked whenever possible. The Yukon encounter was notable for its clarity and the number of witnesses involved. Residents of isolated towns, wildlife researchers, and military personnel all reported seeing the same phenomenon over consecutive nights. Descriptions were consistent: a massive craft, sometimes triangular or circular in outline, moving with smooth, controlled motions that seemed deliberate. Unlike the sporadic blips of radar anomalies, this object's size and brightness made it unmistakable, and its behavior did not match any known aircraft in Canada or the United States. Analysts reviewing the data later noted that even when visibility was poor, multiple independent observers reported identical movements and trajectories, strengthening the credibility of the event. Canadian protocols required that such sightings be reported promptly to NORAD, particularly when objects were large enough to potentially interfere with air traffic. Logs show that radar operators, though initially puzzled, attempted to track the craft using multiple sensors. In some cases, the object seemed to elude conventional tracking, disappearing from radar without explanation only to reappear elsewhere minutes later. These observations mirrored patterns seen in previous NORAD encounters in the U.S., suggesting that certain types of anomalous objects were not bound by recognized flight behaviors or technological limitations. Analysts debated whether these were advanced experimental craft, atmospheric phenomena, or something else entirely. The environmental context of the Yukon added layers of intrigue. Remote and sparsely populated, the region experiences prolonged darkness during winter months, making lights in the sky more visible, but also creating challenges for observers in judging scale and distance. Despite these difficulties, multiple witnesses gave precise accounts of altitude, speed, and size, often corroborated by photographic or radar data. The unusual clarity and consistency of these reports made this encounter one of the most credible Canadian cases ever submitted to NORAD. Researchers studying these events often emphasize the importance of corroborated accounts in remote regions, where fewer conventional distractions reduce the likelihood of misidentification. Cultural and psychological factors shaped how the encounter was perceived locally. The Yukon's vast wilderness has long been a setting for stories of strange lights, mysterious sounds, and unexplainable phenomena. Indigenous oral traditions and early settler accounts describe unusual movements in the sky, sometimes interpreted as spirits, omens, or otherworldly visitors. These cultural contexts did not discredit the Canadian military's approach, but instead provided an additional layer of depth to understanding how human perception interacts with truly unusual phenomena. For modern researchers, it became evident that the encounter existed at the intersection of observable anomaly and deeply ingrained cultural imagination. Official documentation of the Yukon sightings reveals a careful and methodical approach. Canadian military personnel followed reporting protocols, ensuring that radar data, eyewitness testimonies, and any photographic evidence were compiled systematically. These reports were forwarded to NORAD, where analysts compared the sightings with data from other bases and satellite tracking systems. Some tracks aligned with conventional flight paths or celestial phenomena, but the Yukon object repeatedly defied conventional explanation. In internal memos, analysts expressed both curiosity and caution, recognizing the credibility of multiple observers while acknowledging that without a definitive explanation, the object remained unidentified. The encounter also highlighted the collaborative nature of North American airspace monitoring. NORAD's binational structure allowed information from Canada to be integrated with U.S. systems, creating a broader picture of anomalous activity. This integration was crucial. The Yukon Objects Movement, though largely confined to Canadian airspace, suggested a capability for rapid or controlled motion across vast distances. Analysts noted similarities between this craft and earlier U.S. fastwalker incidents, raising questions about whether a single phenomenon or multiple, unrelated anomalies were being observed. The careful exchange of data underscored the professionalism of the monitoring teams and reinforced the credibility of the recorded events. Beyond the immediate technical and operational considerations, the Yukon encounter left a lasting impression on the culture of UAP investigation. It demonstrated that unexplained aerial phenomena were not limited to the contiguous United States, that Canada's northern skies could provide some of the clearest and most compelling evidence of anomalous craft. For witnesses, it created a quiet but profound sense of wonder, a recognition that even in the most isolated places on Earth, the sky could hold mysteries beyond ordinary understanding. For NORAD and Canadian authorities, it reinforced the importance of vigilance, documentation, and cross-border cooperation, reminding analysts that the unknown was not constrained by geography or jurisdiction. Ultimately, the Yukon encounter exemplifies the delicate balance between observation, interpretation, and the unknowable. It combined multiple credible witnesses, partial radar corroboration, and a setting that naturally accentuated visibility, yet remained without a conclusive explanation. In reflecting on these events, researchers often emphasize that such cases reveal both the limitations and the strengths of monitoring systems. They can document the unusual with precision, but they cannot always explain it. The night sky over the Yukon, silent and expansive, remains a space where mystery persists, and NORAD's connection to these northern encounters offers a rare glimpse into the careful watchfulness that quietly records the extraordinary. The way the public comes to understand NORAD's encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena is shaped as much by silence as by observation. Officially, NORAD has maintained a policy of discretion, rarely commenting on unexplained events, even when documentation exists internally. This deliberate silence is not intended to mystify, but to protect national security and prevent public panic. Radar anomalies, fast-moving objects, and other sightings are often classified under operational security protocols, leaving journalists, researchers, and the general public to rely on leaked documents, Freedom of Information Act requests, or retrospective declassified files. The resulting gap between what is known inside the system and what is publicly acknowledged has created a fertile ground for speculation, misinterpretation, and sometimes sensationalism. Media coverage of NORAD-related UAPs has been shaped by this institutional reticence. Reporters, eager to explore mysterious aerial events, often interpret limited information in dramatic ways. Newspaper articles from the 1970s through the 1990s sometimes conflated radar anomalies, eyewitness reports, and UFO culture into singular narratives that emphasized fear or intrigue. While such accounts captured public attention, they rarely reflected the nuance of official investigations. Historians note that the lack of accessible data created a dual reality, one of meticulous, methodical observation within NORAD, and another of public imagination, amplified by cinema, literature, and speculative journalism. The psychology of secrecy plays an important role in this dynamic. Humans have a natural tendency to fill in unknowns with narrative, particularly when official sources remain silent. In the absence of clear explanations, even trained analysts' observations can become mythologized, and a simple radar anomaly may be interpreted as extraterrestrial visitation or government cover-up. Cognitive studies of information gaps show that ambiguity often increases perceived significance. The less people know, the more mysterious or threatening something appears. In the context of NORAD, the deliberate withholding of information for security purposes inadvertently magnifies public fascination, reinforcing the sense that the skies above North America are filled with secrets. Official statements themselves often add to this complexity. When NORAD or the Department of Defense issued comments, they were measured, careful, and deliberately noncommittal. Analysts and spokespersons frequently emphasized that unusual radar contacts were investigated thoroughly, but were either explained as natural phenomena, technical anomalies, or remained inconclusive. While accurate, these statements were sometimes perceived by the public as evasive or incomplete. Researchers studying public perception of UAP reports highlight that partial disclosures, mentioning investigations without providing results, can unintentionally strengthen conspiracy narratives. The effect is a layered culture of curiosity, suspicion, and ongoing debate. Media also played a role in shaping the cultural understanding of NORAD's encounters. Television programs, documentaries, and magazines repeatedly revisited well-known incidents, blending verified accounts with dramatized speculation. Certain cases, such as the Fast Walkers or the 1975 base intrusions, became staples in UFO literature, often stripped of their procedural or technical context. Historians note that these portrayals created enduring archetypes of mysterious objects, glowing lights, silent craft, and intelligent maneuvering, all interpreted through the lens of human imagination. Yet the underlying data, operator logs, radar sweeps, and official memos, often provided a more subdued and methodical narrative, emphasizing observation over interpretation, measurement over speculation. The tension between secrecy and curiosity also affects researchers within the field. Some analysts argue that maintaining classified protocols is necessary to protect national interests, particularly when anomalies occur near military installations or sensitive technologies. Others suggest that limited disclosure fuels public mistrust and prevents collaborative investigation. This delicate balance shapes how NORAD interacts with external agencies and the public. Data is documented meticulously, analyzed rigorously, and shared selectively, creating a dichotomy between internal certainty and external ambiguity. The result is a dual narrative, one grounded in procedure and evidence, and another shaped by imagination and speculation. Cultural influences further amplify the perception of mystery. Since the mid-20th century, North American society has been immersed in stories of extraterrestrials, advanced aircraft, and paranormal phenomena. Movies, novels, and folklore have consistently portrayed aerial anomalies as evidence of otherworldly presence, often neglecting the more mundane, but equally fascinating, technical and procedural aspects of detection. NORAD's encounters, therefore, exist within a broader cultural tapestry that blends science, psychology, and myth. While the operators see blips on a screen or unusual radar tracks, the public interprets lights and movements as symbols of the unknown, bridging factual observation with imaginative speculation. Despite the gap between public perception and official documentation, the pattern of secrecy and measured disclosure contributes to the enduring intrigue. Every unexplained blip, every unidentified track, and every unanswered question is preserved in logs, memos, and operational procedures, quietly recorded while the public theorizes. This interplay of observation, secrecy, and cultural amplification ensures that NORAD's encounters remain part of the larger story of human curiosity about the skies. They remind us that mystery is not simply the absence of knowledge, but a space where disciplined observation meets imagination, where methodical recording intersects with the human desire to understand the inexplicable. In this way, media portrayal, government silence, and procedural rigor combine to create an environment where NORAD's observations are simultaneously credible and enigmatic. For those working within the system, the anomalies are documented, analyzed, and categorized. For the public, the gaps in disclosure cultivate fascination and wonder. The result is a layered narrative, one grounded in evidence, another in imagination, and both contributing to the enduring sense that the skies above North America hold secrets that remain, for now, just beyond our reach. When faced with persistent anomalies in the skies, researchers and analysts naturally turn to a spectrum of explanations, ranging from the strictly scientific to the deeply speculative. Within NORAD and allied agencies, the first step is always to examine data through conventional frameworks. Some events can be attributed to advanced military aircraft, whether domestic prototypes or foreign technology testing, though many anomalies exceed the known capabilities of even the most sophisticated jets or drones. Atmospheric and astronomical phenomena also account for certain observations. Temperature inversions, plasma formations, and meteorological reflections can create lights or movements that appear to defy explanation. Satellite glints, meteors, and other celestial events sometimes coincide with radar anomalies or visual sightings, providing partial clarity. Yet a subset of encounters remains resistant to such rationalizations, provoking deeper inquiry and broader theories. Scientific hypotheses often begin with propulsion and physics. Analysts question whether unknown craft could operate with alternative propulsion systems, possibly using magnetic or electromagnetic principles that defy conventional aviation. Some anomalies appear to accelerate instantaneously, hover without visible lift, or maneuver at extreme speeds with no detectable heat signature, challenging existing aerodynamic knowledge. Aerospace engineers examine these cases meticulously, often running simulations or comparing them with classified aircraft programs. The goal is not to assume an extraordinary origin, but to test whether unexplained movements could be explained by human technology or natural forces. When these tests fail, the phenomenon remains classified as unidentified, the language intentionally neutral, yet profoundly suggestive of limits in current understanding. Alongside scientific explanations, some researchers explore more speculative or paranormal frameworks. These theories range from interdimensional travel to manifestations of exotic energy fields. Certain anomalies seem to interact with electronic systems, appearing on radar while simultaneously causing glitches in instrumentation, a characteristic that some interpret as evidence of technology beyond conventional physics. Others point to patterns in movement that suggest intelligent intent, raising questions about cognition, agency, and origin. In these interpretations, the anomalies are more than physical objects. They are phenomena that challenge human assumptions about space, energy, and perception. Though controversial, such perspectives are considered within credible research circles, not as definitive answers, but as frameworks for inquiry where traditional science offers no explanation. Extraterrestrial hypotheses naturally occupy a place in the discussion. The behavior of some UAPs, structured flight, apparent intelligence, and extreme velocity, aligns with scenarios often proposed in the study of advanced civilizations. Analysts approach these possibilities cautiously, framing them as one of many potential explanations rather than a foregone conclusion. Historical records, including declassified NORAD files, often present a measured tone. The data is compelling, anomalous, and worthy of study, but it does not confirm extraterrestrial origin. This careful language maintains credibility while acknowledging the limits of understanding, a distinction vital to both scientific and public interpretation. Human perception also plays a role in the spectrum of explanations. Observers, even trained personnel, operate within cognitive frameworks shaped by expectations, fatigue, and environmental context. Night shifts, prolonged monitoring, and the monotony of radar observation can subtly influence perception. Optical illusions, sensory adaptation, and cognitive biases occasionally lead to misinterpretations, though rigorous cross-checking of multiple instruments often mitigates these effects. Psychological research on eyewitness reliability emphasizes that consistent reports across trained observers and independent systems carry significant weight. Yet researchers remain cautious in separating perceptual error from genuine anomaly. The interaction between these frameworks, scientific, paranormal, extraterrestrial, and psychological, creates a layered understanding of UAPs. No single explanation accounts for all recorded phenomena. Instead, analysts consider multiple variables simultaneously. Each incident is evaluated against available radar data, visual testimony, satellite information, and environmental conditions. Analysts document discrepancies, catalog behaviors, and compare occurrences across time and geography, searching for patterns that might reveal an underlying principle. When patterns emerge, they often remain suggestive rather than conclusive, maintaining the tension between observation and interpretation. Culturally, these layered explanations shape public perception and scientific dialogue. UFO folklore, speculative literature, and cinematic portrayals influence how observers report anomalies and how the public interprets them. Conversely, meticulous documentation by NORAD and other agencies injects realism and restraint, providing a counterbalance to imaginative speculation. The combination of disciplined observation and open theoretical frameworks encourages curiosity while preventing premature conclusions. Observers and researchers are invited to explore possibilities without compromising analytical rigor. Ultimately, the study of UAPs represents an intersection of knowledge and mystery. Scientific analysis provides structure, reducing uncertainty where possible. Speculative and paranormal frameworks expand the field of inquiry, accommodating phenomena that resist conventional explanation. Extraterrestrial considerations remain one possibility among many, framed cautiously to preserve credibility. Psychological understanding tempers interpretation, reminding researchers of the limitations and strengths of human perception. Together, these approaches create a comprehensive lens through which NORAD's historical and modern encounters can be understood. They do not claim to solve the mystery, but instead illuminate the richness and complexity of a sky that remains both observed and unexplained, inviting contemplation, curiosity, and continued investigation. In recent years, the landscape of aerial surveillance and UAP investigation has evolved dramatically, driven by technological innovation, renewed public interest, and international cooperation. Modern NORAD operations no longer rely solely on traditional radar arrays and human operators. They integrate satellite imagery, advanced infrared sensors, and artificial intelligence to monitor thousands of square miles of airspace in real time. These AI-driven systems can detect subtle anomalies, track multiple objects simultaneously, and filter routine aircraft or weather patterns from unusual activity. For operators and analysts, this has created a more nuanced understanding of what constitutes a genuine anomaly versus predictable signals, increasing both accuracy and the depth of recorded data. One of the most striking developments is the creation of specialized task forces and investigative units focused solely on UAPs. In the United States, several government committees and agencies have been restructured to analyze previously unexplained phenomena with unprecedented transparency. NORAD contributes critical data to these efforts, providing detailed logs from radar, space tracking systems, and ground-based sensors. Unlike the early decades, when secrecy dominated, modern protocols allow for cross-agency collaboration, combining the expertise of military analysts, aerospace engineers, and scientific researchers. This integrated approach has revealed patterns in UAP behavior that mirror historical anomalies, suggesting that some phenomena may persist across decades despite technological advancements. Technological advances themselves have transformed the ability to observe and interpret anomalies. High-resolution satellites can capture optical and infrared signatures, providing verification independent of human observation. Machine learning algorithms analyze vast quantities of data to detect movement patterns, acceleration rates, and flight characteristics that might elude human operators. These innovations allow investigators to distinguish between conventional aircraft, atmospheric phenomena, and objects that behave outside known physical parameters. The result is a more reliable and comprehensive understanding of UAP activity, though many cases continue to defy conventional explanation. Modern encounters reflect both continuity and evolution in anomalous behavior. Some objects mirror the fast walker phenomena of the 1980s, appearing at high speeds, performing sudden directional changes, or vanishing without trace. Others resemble historical reports from the 1970s and 1990s, showing deliberate movement and unexpected patterns over military installations. Analysts emphasize that these similarities suggest persistent, unexplained aerial phenomena, rather than random sensor errors or isolated misidentifications. By comparing historical records with modern detections, researchers can trace long-term trends, identifying recurring characteristics and locations that hint at underlying principles still unknown to science. The psychological and operational context of modern NORAD personnel has also adapted to these changes. With AI assisting routine monitoring, human operators focus on verification, anomaly interpretation, and decision-making. The role of experience remains vital. Seasoned personnel can spot subtle irregularities in sensor data that may indicate genuinely novel behavior. While fatigue and perceptual biases still play a role, layered systems and automated verification reduce the likelihood of error. Observers are trained to recognize patterns, compare historical data, and report anomalies in ways that ensure rigorous documentation while maintaining calm, methodical attention. A continuation of the professional culture established in the complex decades earlier. Public and media involvement has shifted as well. Greater transparency, periodic declassification of reports, and official briefings have increased awareness of UAP phenomena without sensationalizing individual events. By making data available and maintaining a measured approach to explanation, modern investigators balance public curiosity with operational responsibility. Media coverage now often highlights verified observations, historical context, and scientific analysis, rather than speculative dramatization. This approach cultivates informed intrigue, allowing the public to engage with the mystery of UAPs while understanding the complexity of modern monitoring and verification systems. International collaboration further expands the scope of modern investigations. NORAD works alongside Canadian defense agencies, allied nations, and aerospace researchers to monitor airspace and share data. This networked approach allows for cross-referencing anomalies, verifying sightings, and detecting patterns that might span continents or hemispheres. Such collaboration reflects an understanding that unexplained aerial phenomena are not limited to a single country or system. They exist within a global airspace monitored by increasingly sophisticated tools and a growing community of professional analysts. Despite these advancements, many modern UAPs remain unresolved. Even with satellite imagery, AI analysis, and multi-sensor verification, certain objects continue to defy explanation. Some accelerate or maneuver in ways that exceed known physics, while others disappear entirely from all monitoring systems. Analysts approach these cases cautiously, documenting and sharing data while acknowledging limitations. This continued ambiguity reinforces the historical continuity of aerial anomalies, linking contemporary sightings to decades of NORAD observations and maintaining the sense of wonder and mystery that has accompanied these phenomena from the earliest days of surveillance. In essence, the modern era of UAP investigation represents a fusion of past experience and cutting-edge technology. NORAD's historical records, fast walker detections, and Canadian encounters provide a foundation, while AI, satellite systems, and international cooperation expand both reach and accuracy. The work of today builds on the meticulous documentation of the past, ensuring that anomalies are recorded with unprecedented detail. As the narrative of NORAD's encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena draws to a close, a sense of reflection emerges, a quiet acknowledgement of the vastness of the sky and the limits of human understanding. Across decades, from the earliest mystery airships to the fast walkers and Yukon anomalies, a consistent thread weaves through the records. The sky is not always as empty or predictable as it appears. While technology has advanced, observation methods have refined, and analytical tools have grown increasingly sophisticated, certain phenomena remain unresolved. This enduring uncertainty is not a weakness of science or intelligence. Rather, it is a reminder that the universe continues to harbor mysteries that challenge perception, technology, and imagination alike. In reflecting on these events, it becomes evident that NORAD's role has always been both practical and symbolic. Practically, it is a sentinel, tasked with defending the continent, tracking known and unknown objects, and ensuring safety. Symbolically, it represents humanity's aspiration to understand the skies above, to measure, record, and interpret the world beyond immediate reach. Each anomaly, each unexplained blip, and each visual sighting offers a moment of intersection between observation and the unknown, reminding both operators and the public that certainty is not always achievable. The persistence of the unexplained invites contemplation, curiosity, and a respect for phenomena that resist categorization. These reflections are further deepened by the human dimension of observation. The personnel who monitor NORAD systems, often in the quiet solitude of the Cheyenne Mountain Complex or remote radar installations, experience these anomalies with a unique blend of professionalism and wonder. They record data meticulously, follow protocols rigorously, and remain calm under uncertainty. Yet the rare moments when objects defy understanding leave subtle impressions. Memories of sudden accelerations, objects hovering silently, or patterns too precise to be random endure in the quiet conversations and recollections of these trained observers. These moments underscore that mystery is not only an external phenomenon, but also an internal experience, shaping how humans perceive, interpret, and engage with the unknown. The cultural resonance of NORAD's encounters also emerges in reflection. Over decades, these phenomena have inspired literature, film, folklore, and research, blending factual observation with the imagination of generations. Yet the cultural impact is not mere fantasy. It is a lens through which society grapples with the limits of knowledge, the possibilities of advanced technology, and the potential existence of phenomena beyond conventional explanation. Each declassified report, each confirmed sighting, and each historical investigation contributes to a layered narrative, where rigor meets curiosity and observation coexists with wonder. The enduring fascination with the unexplained sky reflects a universal human impulse to seek understanding while accepting the presence of mystery. Looking forward, the study of UAPs continues to evolve. Modern technologies, from AI-assisted tracking to global sensor networks, expand the capacity to detect, document, and analyze anomalies. International collaboration allows for broader verification, cross-referencing, and pattern recognition, creating a more detailed picture of aerial phenomena than ever before. Yet even with these tools, the unknown persists, reminding researchers that some aspects of the sky remain resistant to current models of physics, aerodynamics, and atmospheric science. The juxtaposition of advanced observation and enduring mystery provides a unique perspective. The more we learn, the more questions emerge, and the universe appears simultaneously accessible and enigmatic. There is also a philosophical dimension to this reflection. NORAD's UAP encounters challenge assumptions about predictability, causality, and the limits of human understanding. They illustrate that even in highly controlled, technologically sophisticated systems, phenomena exist that escape immediate explanation. This invites a broader contemplation of humanity's place in the universe, the potential for intelligence or processes beyond our current comprehension, and the humility inherent in observation. The sky, vast and uncontained, becomes a mirror for human curiosity, patience, and the capacity to engage with uncertainty without fear. The narrative of NORAD's monitoring also emphasizes the importance of careful documentation, analysis, and skepticism. Each anomaly, from historical mystery airships to modern fastwalkers, has been recorded with precision, evaluated rigorously, and contextualized within operational and environmental frameworks. This disciplined approach ensures that fascination does not devolve into unfounded speculation, preserving the integrity of investigation while maintaining the sense of wonder that accompanies unexplained phenomena. Reflection on this process highlights the balance between imagination and methodical study, a balance essential for both scientific credibility and meaningful storytelling. Ultimately, the enduring legacy of NORAD's UAP encounters is one of quiet awe and persistent curiosity. The night sky remains a vast, largely unexplored frontier, offering both data and enigma, patterns and anomalies, understanding and mystery. Observers, researchers, and enthusiasts alike are invited to engage with this frontier with both rigor and imagination, to respect what is known while remaining open to what cannot yet be explained. In this space between certainty and the unknown, the story of NORAD skies unfolds, a story of vigilance, discovery, and the enduring capacity of human beings to wonder at the unexplained. As the night deepens and the lights of distant cities fade, the sky continues to stretch infinitely above. NORAD screens continue their silent sweep, operators remain alert, and the anomalies occasionally reappear, gliding across the radar, illuminating the imagination, and reminding all who watch that some mysteries are meant not only to be recorded, but also to be contemplated. In this balance of observation and reflection, of technology and human curiosity, the story finds its quiet conclusion. The universe remains full of secrets, and we, in our small yet vigilant way, continue to look upward, awake in the calm, watching, and ready to record whatever comes next.